We are live.
Oak Hill School Board meeting to order. Are there any considerations for the agenda for additions or deletions?
Yes, in true, I think each July, I feel like this happens to us too. So our agenda is finalized on Thursdays. And on Friday, we had a bunch of recommendations come our way for new staff members that we need to approve at this meeting because they'll start the end of July, beginning of August with some of the sporting activities that we have, or before our next meeting. So we do have some additions with the personnel appointments. Lacey Schaus, substitute teacher and substitute aide at the elementary level. Brianna Stuttle, behavior specialist for the Grant County Special Education Co-op. Abby Bonnick, special education teacher and employability coach. Tony Lotzenheiser, junior high volleyball coach. Madison Waggle, junior high cheer coach. And Chad Bates, junior high cross country coach. So those will all be added to the appointments in the personnel section.
Get a motion to accept those. So moved. Second. All those in favor, right hand? 5-1. We will stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The celebration.
None that I know of, we currently don't. I know we've had a couple class reunions use the school this summer, so that's kind of been neat. They will have positive experiences. Class of what year, 2001?
So,
Oh,
our 20-year will be next summer.
okay. I thought I knew it was kind of close in there, but
90s were.
90s were,
Yes.
and then 60s.
Oh, 60s as well.
Yeah, 90s and 60s, so they used it, so I will follow up and hopefully we can solve that.
My 40
Public participation?
Move on to the consent.
All right, the claims, they're in your folders for approval for the month of June, for the month of June. Personnel resignations, Stella Jackson, junior high cross country. Jamie Moore, junior high special education instructional assistant and junior high student council. Steve Nelson, boys golf coach. Jennifer Switzer elementary principal. And Katrina Stepler, Switzer special education instructional assistant. Appointments or new hires for us. Lisa Graham, special education director. She will be part-time, half-time for Oak Hill, and then she'll be half-time for the Grant County Special Education Co-op, effective July 20th. So that's when her contract will start. Rick Alexander, Oak Hill choir director, grades 5 through 12. Lacey Schaus, substitute teacher and substitute aide. These are the ones that we just added to the agenda. Brianna Stuttle, behavior specialist for Grant County Special Education Co-op. Abby Bonnick, special education teacher for the Special Education Co-op. That should say that too. So, Tony Lotzenheiser, junior high volleyball. Madison Waggle, junior high cheer, and Chad Bates, junior high cross country. No transfers, no donations. Fundraiser, the football team will be doing their discount looks. So I believe they're $20 and there's coupons in that for area businesses for the whole year. It just expired in June. So, and that is all for the consent agenda.
Do you have any questions? If not, need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, right hand? 5-0.
Continue.
Where do we get the football folks?
So any of the players will have them as well as probably, yes, as well as student managers, I was going to say. So in your case, Sarah.
Yeah.
So they should, yeah, they're all selling them. And I usually get them from one of the coaches. Usually,
It's a good deal.
yeah, it really is. My problem is I leave it in one car, and when I go to Subway or, wherever, it's not the car that,
Supposed to watch it.
probably, that's what that probably means. I would get a better deal if I just bought two of them. Continuing business, update on the HVAC project. We're gonna talk timeline and advertisement of bids. So first, we'll look at the timeline. We met on last week with representatives from Gibraltar, Skillman, and an engineering firm known as Millie's. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but they are the contractors that are working on our HVAC project right now. And it's amazing if you've not been through that process of how detailed you get into with each of those drawings that they're presenting and explaining, showing. So we went through building by building, looked through what the HVAC will look like in each of them. The positive thing is that early indicators, if you remember basically our budget for this, we can go no higher than 25.5 million. Right now, the numbers coming in are about 17. So that is very exciting for us, because 25 was obviously the max we could spend, but to go that high is not something you want to do if you don't have to. So you can see here on the calendar or on the timeline, Gibraltar will be 100% done, and we'll have the drawings to Skillman on the 20th. They're going to be coming back and doing some review of those documents, going back over them. They'll be sending us some information about the advertisements that need to go into the newspaper. Bid documents will be available to bidders on the 29th. We'll have our first advertisement and then our second advertisement early August. Pre-bid meeting will be 9 a.m. on the 13th, along with then the walkthrough that afternoon on the 1st. So it sounds like the pre-bid meeting is a virtual one, and then they actually come on site at 1 o'clock. That is during the school day. So what I asked of them is that if they can make sure they let us know the schedule so that the principals know who and during what times they will be in their buildings to look through the different areas. The good thing is our classrooms in each of the schools are set up pretty similar. So once you look at a classroom in Converse, most of those classrooms are the same as to what they're going to do, what kind of equipment will go into that. So they're not going to have to visit every single classroom in every single school. So that'll be a positive with that. You can see their public bid opening will be the 26th. They'll have a pre-award conference to go through all those. And then they will provide you with a letter of recommendation, Skillman will. And at the board meeting on the 14th is when we will approve those bids. They're not quite sure how many different areas they'll bid yet. They were talking 3 when we were meeting to try to keep it kind of simple and not go too far out into the weeds with some of the bidding, kind of keeping the packages together. So I guess we'll find out. And then you'll approve the bids that night if they meet your satisfaction, and then they will kind of start the process for getting the equipment. Right now, they think lead time on a lot of that is 9 to 12 weeks. So they're going to get that started right away, and then we will actually start construction or mobilization that early March timeline. Much of that will be done, whatever they can do ahead of time, they're going to try to do as far as getting things set up outside. But like they'll start the demo and that type of stuff. And you can see here on this schedule that much of the work is around our spring break. So down here in the blue gold area right up above, they'll start mobilization, so getting things set up outside for crews to be ready to work. And then they will start phases for each of the schools. And like I said, they're gonna, if you can see at the bottom, it says spring. So they have them kind of aligned with spring break to start demolition and getting into the rooms. And then we will obviously have parts of the school while they're working blocked off, so students won't be in that part. The good thing is each of our elementary buildings, and well, all of our buildings have empty classrooms. So we shouldn't have a hard time finding, areas for them to go while they're working on them. So you can kind of see there. They will they will be working in every school at the same time. So that's kind of something, they'll be working in different areas of the school. During the summer months, they're gonna try to get, so you see that summer break time. Phase 2, I believe, and 2A are what they're gonna try to do during that time. And much of that is the commons areas like the cafeterias, the gyms, those where students gather, and we wouldn't be able to kind of block those off during the school year. So they'll work on the classrooms during that time. So hopefully completion will be the spring of 28. So this is it's obviously a process. The plan is to meet with principals in the near future here, once we get going, and they can help basically choose the areas that they work on and the times they work on them.
Skilled and still planning, they talked early on about meeting even with teachers to help explain.
Well, we'll start with the principals, and then, we can go, this information then will be basically shared with our teachers as well. So everybody is aware and kind of knows what's going to be happening. And if they can have enough notice too, then, I always say, the more time you can kind of think about and know about something, I think the easier it is to adjust to it once it happens. So that's our hope. Any questions on that? Next on the agenda is the elementary and high school handbooks. Here's the elementary. You had the first review of this last month, so you can go through anything in yellow where the changes made. You can see there. The biggest change I will say for all schools this coming school year is obviously we had to make a change to our cell phone policy. It's bell to bell, meaning 8 o'clock when the first bell rings to 3:10 when the last bell rings. Students need to have their phones turned off and put away. And how we're doing it here, some schools have bought like holders for them to have in areas, and we are asking that our students turn them off and have them in their lockers. So, that will be probably the biggest change, and not necessarily, I don't think that will be a huge change for our elementary schools as much as it will be for our high school. Even our junior high really only had them at lunch. My own child, that lunch and before school, those will be the hardest things for those kids. They usually use them.
Can't have no lunch here.
Nope, can't have them at breakfast. Well, they can have them up until that first bell rings at 8 o'clock, then they gotta be. So they could have them at breakfast, and then after school, obviously, they can have them in the school. So, let's see, a little bit of dress code change there for some specifications on what the tank tops can look like. That was for elementary. Now for high school, here you can see updated cell phone policy, updated some infraction guidelines to the discipline policy. Chromebook, advanced expectations, dropping classes and e-learning. They put a timeline on that. So students after, I believe it's the first 5 days of school, they can't drop a class and switch another class unless there's some extenuating circumstances there. Same thing with e-learning, dropping and trying to go to e-learning or vice versa. They have a timeline they have to follow now for that. Just because it was too hard for teachers to try to kind of catch up with that in the middle of the year. Food delivery, I know that may seem, you would be amazed at the amount of kids that have their food DoorDash served at lunch. It blows me away. So, or even like Starbucks. pretty interesting. So those are the main changes, nothing major other than, like I said, the cell phone policy will be the biggest change for all of our kids. Literature's gone home already, but again, until it actually goes into effect, that is, it's not really real, I guess. Sometimes people don't really feel it until it happens, even if you know about it. So. We need approval for the handbook.
We do both of them at once or?
You can do it separately. I should have gone with it.
For the elementary handbook.
Any questions? Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Same for the junior high and high school handbook. Second. All those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0.
All right, on to new business. Our water operator, if you remember back a year ago, not even a year ago, probably 6 months ago maybe, Ryan Smith was our water operator from when I started until he resigned, and then Mike Mock took that over for us. Mike has now resigned as well. He has taken a new position and is no longer the water operator, or wastewater operator in Eastern or in Greentown. So he's not able to continue to do ours any longer. So Troy, with the hours he was able to accumulate over the last couple of years, getting his wastewater certification, that allowed him to be able to have it's not the water operator, the fully licensed one where you take the class and get it, but we are able to have him do what's called a facility-specific water operator. So he would need the WT3 certification for the high school, and then the WT1 certification for Sweetser Elementary. So we have 2 buildings that he has to test the water on, and then send that information in. And he was able to take the test and passed. So that will start, he started that July 1st for us. That did come with a increase of $400 per month to help out with that extra duty. That's what we do for that.
Any questions for that? I'll need a motion for a second. So moved. Second. All those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0.
On to item B, which will be the addendum to the bus driver wage agreement for retention and attendance. Prior to me getting here, they had implemented a bus driver retention and attendance policy, or an addendum to the policy that was already in place, that basically gave a monetary incentive for our bus drivers, one, to come back, and then 2, to limit the time throughout the school year that they're gone. And if they have no absences, they get, after each quarter, they get a bonus. If it's 0, it is it was $500, now it'll be $400. It was 3 times a year, now it'll be 4 times a year. So while it looks like it's less, it's actually gonna be the same amount of money for the retention bonus, and then them coming back for each quarter don't have any absences, it'll actually be the same amount. But previously, we only had it for the first 3 quarters, and then after the 3rd quarter, there was no incentive for that 4th quarter, and so there was, some challenges some days finding drivers that were absent. So we are trying to extend it now through the school year. I think that was just an oversight in the beginning when it first got started. So basically, it'll be similar. And then we put some specifications down to what it looks like for a 2-hour delay or an early release.
Any questions for that? I'll hear the motion. Second. Zero.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0.
next on the agenda is to approve student fees for the 26-27 school year. And I will have Chris talk a little bit about this, as she is the one that has done the research on this and what we're able to do and what we're not able to do. Can give you a little history.
So after attending a conference this spring, learned that many schools are moving towards including student fees. While we can't charge curriculum-based fees to parents, we can look at systems of communication to families, the different logistics of other things that it takes to educate children. And so we kind of went through some of the different platforms that we have in place here at Oak Hill as far as non-curricular supplies, the logistics, and the communication services to parents, and broke those down per student for those costs, and then kind of allocated them across the different grade levels and buildings, and ultimately determined that just to get us going, since this is going to be new, we haven't had fees for a period of time, we're going to look at $50 per student across the district.
If you remember back, it's been about 2 years now that we haven't charged, or the laws were changed, or the legislator made the change that we could no longer charge for curriculum. We couldn't charge for curricular supplies for our students. Well, when that came down from the state, I feel like it's like a lot of things that come our way. There was no real guidance on it, other than you just can't charge for curriculum. They didn't specify, are there still things we could charge for versus things we absolutely cannot charge for? Well, after the last couple of years, and attorneys kind of getting involved in different things to basically break down the language as to what that exactly looks like, we now have a better understanding of what could be charged, like those day-to-day fees that schools incur to communicate with families, to have Skyward, to do that sort of thing that are non-curricular, we're able to charge, and just probably wouldn't be something we would do if we didn't have, such a difficulty right now financially with everything that we're kind of dealing with. We need to kind of help support some of that. While $50 doesn't seem like a lot, if you take that times 1,400 students, 1,450, 87 is what we had last year. We're coming in at 1,450 this year. It is still a good revenue to help with some of that. When we do have to purchase new or renew our contracts with these businesses and individuals, and even help go towards some of our curriculum expenses that we no longer can get that extra support for. So,
And correct me if I'm wrong, when this happened, I seem to remember Leslie's still here, we ran numbers, weren't we charging like $300 to $400 and the state was reimbursing $162? Like, it's laughable how little the state, so this will help fill that gap. It's not, we're just trying to get extra money, we're trying to make up that extra money.
Yeah,
that
so-
we're getting.
So depending on the grade levels, obviously, some of the high school classes that the kids took were a little bit more expensive than, a kindergarten class, let's say. So depending on whatever grade level, but the average curricular fees for a student at Oak Hill was about $200 to $300. So what the state reimburses us now is like $152. Is that about $152 a student? So we are, losing some of that in there for the curricular, for the different curricular costs that we have. But you're right, it's not going to, it wasn't equal. We kind of knew that was going to probably be the case, even though when they first rolled it out, they made it sound like it would be made up in our state grant. Well, that would be so much extra for a lot of schools. And I feel like there were a lot of schools out there that had higher fees than what we had at the time. So to try to do that across the entire state would have almost been impossible anyway. But, so we get about $152 back a student, I believe. Each year it kind of changes a little bit with what they allot towards that, or they allow towards that. So this will help somewhat, but it's not going to be nearly what we were able to collect prior to that law being changed. And just to kind of put into perspective, we just bought new social studies, just textbooks, for one set per classroom for 7 through 12. Not even every student gets a new set or gets their own textbook. There is a digital version that the teachers have that will help with obviously the student part of it, but one textbook for one class, so we're looking at 35 per grade level, 7 through 12, was $20,000. So 150 textbooks. We just bought that, it was over $20,000. So I think that's kind of been the tricky part, is because that amount went away that we used to use for curriculum. We are trying to find, ways that we legally can still do some of that just to help push with that.
Any questions for that? Not in motion, one second.
So moved.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Right.
Also, for approval, the new business is our food service proposals. We have, the first on there is our vendor list, and so what Dana, our food service director, does is goes through and she chooses, and there's a list of ones we can choose that the Department of Nutrition allows us to use, and then she basically has to identify which of those she will be using. Obviously, from year to year, they're pretty much the same. I think the thing about Dana that she does a really good job with is finding the best food, good food for the price. She's very conscious about price of food, but she's also very good about finding, like, if we get in product that doesn't taste good, or, she finds the kids don't really like, she's really good about changing that out. So these are the vendors that they would like to use in the food service department this upcoming school year. And then student meal prices. If you remember last year, we did not increase school lunches at all. The year prior to that, it was 5 cents. The year prior to that, it was 5 cents. So in the last 3 years, we've increased lunch or prices, breakfast and lunch prices by 10 cents. This next year, she is actually requesting that it be raised again by 10 cents. And I think, again, much of that is coming from the increased price of food, the increased price of gas. Those things are feeding into our costs for meals for our students.
And we had the big one to put in that she was required to go out by the state.
Yeah.
She was probably required to raise it by that. Since we didn't have a raise last year, and it was less than she required.
So she does a formula that the state has her fill out paperwork, and then they basically tell you should raise it by this much or this much, comparing where our food prices are compared to where they need to be. So you can see here. So right now our high school junior high lunch is $2.80. And oftentimes what I find is they don't get a second meal. They'll get, like my own kid included, she eats lunch every day at school because she doesn't have time to pack the lunch. And she'll get like an extra entree, which is not $3.50, but might be like $1. I think they're extra, a little bit extra, like $1.50, something like that. So she'll do an a la carte. She'll get her meal, and then she'll do some other things a la carte.
Ice cream.
Ice cream, yes. Chips is usually what I see on there. Chips.
Do we need to vote on the vendor list and?
So do you want them all three, or do you want them
They can all three be together.
all three together? And I'll go through the last one is the food service bid recommendations here. So again, she goes out to the different companies and gets proposals from them. And for each of these areas, and this is who she would like to work with to. Oftentimes they are the best service or the best price. So not always the lowest, but most times the lowest, so you see there.
Anybody have any questions on this? If not, we have a motion and a second for the food service proposal. Vote. All those in favor, Randy? 5.
Review of the budget calendar.
So this follows the schedule that we used last fall as well, just following our current board dates. But on September 3rd, the Form 3, the Notice of Bus Replacement, and the Notice of Capital Projects will be published in Gateway. And that has to be done 10 days prior to our budget hearing. And so we have the budget hearing slated for September 14th. On September 9th, we will do the presentation of the budget workshop. And then October 12th, we will adopt our 2027 budget, tax rate and levies, bus replacement plan, and the capital project plan, and the budget resolutions. November 9th is the deadline which all of those budget forms have to be in Gateway. And December 31st is the deadline for us to certify the 2027 budget.
And August becomes budget central here. It's very, it's a lot. It's a lot.
The good thing is, this will be your second year now, and we'll have last year we worked through it.
To work through the new budget process this year, so new hurdle to jump
A
over.
little 2.0, so that means it's better. It means it's better, right?
We have a new platform to do our budget on, Gateway 2.0 budget, budget documents in Gateway 2.0. So I know it's gonna be much better. Just know it. And then the last thing on the report of the superintendent is, and I should have said report of the CFO because this is also Chris. So we belong to the school employee trust, yes, sorry. The school employee trust for our health insurance. There are 10 schools that are part of this trust. So yeah, school employee benefits trust. There are 10 schools that are part of this trust. I've never been in a trust before coming here. I'm not sold quite yet on the trust, just because I feel like much of, and as we look through the claims and the different information shared with us, because it's 10 schools, you get a lot of information, but it's hard to know, some things we could do here to make our rates better, whereas our previous school we were our own insurance plan. And, while you didn't know the employees' names, if you had so many ER visits, if you had so many, certain prescriptions that were in a certain, you can make adjustments to your own plan to try to help with that. I feel like that's much harder to do when you're in a trust, and there are so many others that are part of that as well. So when we look at our health insurance rates over the last 3 years or 4 years, the first 2 years I was here, we did not increase at all. They had enough in their basically, fund to where they felt they were comfortable not increasing the rates for the 2 years. 2 years ago, we had a 3% increase, and then last year we had a 4% increase. So then I'll let Chris has been to a couple meetings recently where they're talking about numbers for next year.
So we met as a board in June, as you can see all the numbers from the varying schools. And the actuary presented that his projection for our increase was going to be 21.8% for the 2027. And so as the board, we all agreed and voted on that it did not exceed the 12%. And as Sherry described, the 0% the couple years, the 3% and the 4% increases. When I even kind of looked back at what the actuary was projecting in 2026, he was projecting an 8% increase, and we came in at 4%. And so 21.8 and saying we're not going to exceed 12, that's quite a gap there. The actuary is actually projecting for 2028 a 24% increase. And a large amount of this is due to prescription drug costs, is what a lot of it is. And so The trust is trying to do things in the plan to reduce some of the cost to the school districts, eliminating certain prescriptions that are available. GLP-1s are an example of that, and so we will see. They, you can advocate so much on this isn't really realistic, but at the same token, there's going to be an increase. So hopefully we're not going to hopefully it's in the single digit. So,
And how we've done it here the last 2 years, and I believe even prior to that, which is why we did it the last 2 years, is like in the 3% increase 2 years ago, we took 1.5% of it, and then the staff took 1.5%, and we did the same thing this last year. I think that will be hard. It'll be hard for us to take on the entire amount, but I do think we may have to look at how we split that up this next year, even with the difficulty we're encountering financially as well. So hopefully, maybe, like she said, if we could get to 6 to 8, somewhere in there, that would be a win, which is still twice of what we paid the last 2 years. And I saw the rates the last 2 years and what they did to, and how they affected our employees, and it's a lot.
Have we looked at other options? We've done retirement, we've done, we're doing our due diligence. Are we doing our due diligence with it? Do we need to look at something else?
Yeah, actually, we have met with, a week ago, a little over a week ago, we met with an insurance company out of Crawfordsville. And they kind of wanted to talk to us a little bit about all of our insurance. We explained to them where we are with our property, that bundle with our property, our casualty, our workman's comp. We're with Liberty now, and we would probably have a hard time, they would have a hard time finding somebody to take us just with the difficulties we've had the last few years, since we've had those significant claims back in 22, 23. So once we explained that, they agreed that would be, we'd have to wait 5 years, and we're not obviously there yet. So they would take a look at that again in 5 years. They think that, if we continue to have no claims like what we do now, there will be more insurance companies interested in working with us. However, in the meantime, they did ask about our other, and I said, well, we're really interested in looking at health insurance, and what we could do to possibly get out of the trust. And look at then what does that do if we try to do, not necessarily, we wouldn't be self-insured, but we'd be on an insurance plan where it's more our people kind of dictate what those rates look like, which was similar to where we came from. And so they are doing that. We actually meet with them on Wednesday again. They have the people in their office that kind of deal on the health insurance side of things meeting with us to talk through it. We've also contacted the trust to get specific information on what does that look like if we try to get out. We have to give them a year's notice. And then, as far as claim wise, we'd have to obviously continue to pay whatever claims we have through that time frame, that, that entire year. Even if they came in up through December 31st, sometimes it can take months before bills are settled with the insurance company. So we probably have to extend that out into making sure those were paid up until for a few months after that. But pretty much that is what they said was it to try to get out. I have a feeling, depending on what we find, that would definitely be something we look seriously at, because if we're looking at 12% this coming year and 24, in a year to come, and I just think that's not something our people are we can do. And I will be honest with you, the coverage we have here and for what we're paying for it is not, I don't feel like it's probably coverage wise, it's the worst coverage that I've had as an educator. And we're paying more for that than I've paid at any other school. So.
How long have we been in the trust? I'm sorry.
Gosh, I think forever.
I didn't know if
I'll tell you the manual in my office. hybrid, so I would say quite some time.
We were one of the original
Schools.
that
I
set
would-
it up, I believe.
Yeah.
So the original ground.
So I do, like I said, I think it's something we're gonna seriously have to look at.
It's harder than that. I mean, I brought back some material for her and they presented, our top 20 large claimants. And I had her look at it because I don't know some specifics. And they'll give you the age range or is it the employer or the spouse? And just looking through that list, it doesn't appear that it's
Any of
on-
ours.
On the large claimants, so.
Yeah.
Kind of at the mercy of everybody in the trust at that point.
And the largest claimant is, what was interesting about that is the largest claimant, the information that they shared was they only had like $10,000 in medical. It was like almost $300,000 in prescriptions.
It was,
I mean, I was like, that is, and they have made some changes on that side of it, you said, right?
Yes.
The trust did.
Which is down in the narrative a little bit.
Yeah.
About what actions they've already taken to try to reduce some of the.
Right, action's already taken. The GLP coverage, they made changes to that, no longer covered, or a portion of it maybe is, but not like it was before. The Garner implementation is another platform that people can use instead of going in and seeing a healthcare provider, kind of another resource. So.
yeah, so,
I know, that's, I only see that just getting more difficult as
Anybody have any questions? Need a motion to dismiss in a second. So moved. All those in favor, right hand? 12, 5.
well,
So we're going back to the budget.
One of the stuff we're gonna go down on, just.
Yeah.